as we should only love Allah, we will be destroyed by our money. If we love our halal spouse, our halal children, our halal parents, all of these things are halal for us, our halal business. If we love any of these things, as we should only love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we actually become destroyed by the very thing that we love. And so we have to learn, and this is something that many of us are not taught, but we have to learn that there is a right and a wrong way to love. And this is one of the most important lessons that I have and that many of us have had in our lives, that there is a right and wrong way to love our children. There is a right and wrong way to love our spouses. There is a right and wrong way to love our money, our status, our power, our careers, our business. And so this is about how to learn to love in the right way. I begin this book by talking about something quite personal, and that is a dream that I had when I was 17 years old. And in this dream, I see a little girl inside of a masjid, and she asks me a question. She asks me, why do people have to leave each other? I was only 17. I didn't know much about what would come later in my life. But I'm having this dream where this little girl's asking me this question. Why do people have to leave each other? I hadn't experienced this yet, but the question was very personal. And I realized that this question was very relevant to me because I was the type of person who was very highly sensitive, and I was the type of person from when I was a child I would get very attached, and not necessarily in a healthy way. So for example, if I was in a daycare and my parents had to leave me for a while, I was one of those kids who would start crying and not stop crying. Other children could calm down. My dad used to say that when you started crying, you wouldn't stop. And so I was very sensitive from the beginning. This was my nature. I was a very sensitive child. And I would get very attached. It was very hard for me when my parents would have to leave. It was very hard for me anytime there was, for example, a problem with one of my friends. I would take it very deep. It would hit me very hard, and I would have trouble coping, and I would have trouble recovering. And I give this analogy that it's like if you take a vase and you put the vase at the edge of the table, that vase is likely to fall and break. And so what I was doing is that through my unhealthy types of attachments to my friends, to everything around me, to moments, to outcomes, I needed things to work out a certain way, or else I was devastated. And so what I was doing is I was setting myself up for disappointment over and over and over because I had these very unrealistic expectations. My expectations were that this life had to be perfect. My expectations were that people around me had to be perfect. My expectations were that my relationships had to be perfect. And if they weren't, I was heartbroken. I didn't know how to accept anything less than perfection. And so what I started to realize, and this happened later on in my life, is that we always learn about love of dunya as being an attachment to material things.